Hello everyone, and welcome to the first of our People Plus webinars. My name is Simon Stockton, for anyone who doesn't know me, and with me co-presenting today will be Sian Lockwood.
Hello.
Hi Sian.
Just thought I'd say hi.
We've had a few kind of not exactly technical hitches, but just kind of getting to grips with this technology. So apologies for the slightly late start, but we believe that we've got everyone logged on and hopefully hearing us in full kind of Technicolor kind of audio. There's no kind of pictures that will come with this. It's simply going to be a selection of slides that we'll run you through to kick us off. And that's going to be just kind of setting the scene, giving us all a kind of just a reminder of where we're up to on the People Plus program, what it's all about, and a lead into the kind of key issues that people have identified and brought along as the things that we most want to discuss in this shared space today. Before we get into that though, I'm very grateful to be joined by Kerry from HSA, who is our administrator on the webinar for today and is going to share with everyone how the process works and how you're going to be able to contribute. So, Kerry, do you want to take us through that, please?
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. I'll just run you through very quickly how the webinar will work today. So you will hear Simon and Sian presenting and showing you through the slides that are on the screen at the moment. Throughout the majority of the webinar, everybody apart from Simon and Sian will be muted, so you won't be able to be live in the webinar unless I unmute you. What we would like to do is when we get to the key issues stage, once each key issue has been raised, we'd like to have a live question and answers session. So what we'd like to do is after the key issue, Simon or Sian will then say, we'll now move to the question and answer session for that key issue. What we'd then like to do is ask people to click on the icon that is a grey or yellow hand, which you should be able to see very close to where your name is on the control panel. Once you click on that icon and raise your hand, each person then individually will be unmuted so that they can raise their question and Simon or Sian can answer it.
Sorry, Kerry, can I pause you there? It's just there's a fair bit of background noise. I'm guessing it might be coming from you, Sian, if you can still hear me. It might be.
What sort of background noise?
I'm not sure. It sounds like a conversation kind of going on somewhere in the background.
Oh. Okay, sorry, yes, because I'm in my office, so I'm just going to put my hand over the mic and does that help?
You can mute yourself temporarily, I think. Is that right, Kerry?
Yeah, would you like me to mute Sian for the moment?
Do you want to do that just for a second until you finish your bit? Fantastic.
Okay. Would you like me to start again, Simon, or carry on from where I was?
I think just go back one step is probably okay. It started.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what we'd like to do is when we get to the key issues section, is after each key issue has been raised, we would like to have a live question and answers session. To do that, once the key issue has been raised by Simon or Sian, you'll be asked to put your hand up if you have a question. To do that, next to your name or close to your name is the icon of a hand. It will be a grey hand or it will be a yellow hand. And each person will then individually be unmuted so that you can ask your question. At the end of the webinar, there will be another question and answers session, but instead of that being a live session, we'd like that to just be a session where you type your questions into the questions box, which again is on the control panel. If you type your question in and press the send button, that will then send your questions through to me and I will read them out for Simon or Sian to answer. Just to ensure that everybody can find their hand icon and will be able to ask the question that they'd like to ask, please could everybody now click on their hand icon. just waiting for a few more people. Okay, so I've still got 3 people who are unable to locate the hand. It should be very close to your name, and it will be either a grey hand or a yellow hand. Okay, that's great, thank you. If everybody could now click on the hand again to remove it from the screen. That's lovely, thank you. So that's everything from me, Simon. Back over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Kerry. It's great when a plan comes together, isn't it? It seems like everyone's going to be able to both hear us and contribute to the webinar today. So if that comes off, I, for one, will be very happy. Personally, the webinar technology is also fairly new to me. This is only, I think, my 3rd webinar, and this will be the biggest number of people that we've had on a webinar that I've personally done. So very excited by that. So as I said, I'm just going to take us through a few slides just to kind of set the scene and make sure that we're all on the same page and remind ourselves kind of what we're doing and how we got here. So assuming that the technology works on my computer, yeah, here we go. We're doing this work as a collaborative project with community catalysts and with yourselves at MacIntyre. And as we've said before, I think for those of you who've come on to any of the engagement events, we believe this is really only possible because of the strong foundation that MacIntyre already has in the way that it works and in the culture of the organisation. There is a strong sense in which MacIntyre has always valued its people, both the staff and the people that are supported through the many services that MacIntyre runs across the country, and a desire to not rest on your laurels, so to continually improve that commitment. I think has allowed us to come together and undertake this People Plus project and design that together. And really what we're focusing on is this sense that we have a great and perhaps at least in part untapped resource in the gifts, the skills and the talents that everyone connected with MacIntyre, both staff and people who are receiving support, has. And that what we really could make more of if we were able to take a more systematic and intentional approach. So really what we're doing is to understand what we need to do in order to do more of the stuff that we do already in harnessing people's gifts, skills and talents. So it's not something which is really necessarily best thought of as a standalone project, because it builds very much on the great work that happens already across MacIntyre through great interactions and through the way that you work with people and through the way that you work within your teams and the different services. And really it's about making sure that we can maximize the potential for that good stuff that already happens to happen less in pockets and more as a common everyday practice. So finding ways that we can systematically understand the hidden and untapped potential that people have, and to systematically again find ways to use that intentionally and remove the barriers, the things that get in the way, perhaps within the individual services, but also the kind of back office systems that we might need to pay attention to make sure that we can work intentionally in this way, so that everyone is able to contribute and everyone is able to benefit. The work that we're doing connects very strongly with making it real, which many of you will know is the Think Local Act Personal set of benchmarks for organisations that want to make a public commitment to develop personalization and improve the way in which their services are personalized. There are currently, I think, over 500 organizations signed up to Making It Real, and MacIntyre is one of those organizations, and a very prominent one. It has 3 priorities at the moment. We've got 3 core priorities that form the commitment to Making It Real, for developing a certain number of kind of key areas and focusing on those. And the People Plus program fits very neatly with those priorities. It is very much about embedding co-production as a universal way of working. It's very much about continuously strengthening the voice of people who use services, and also about ensuring that the workforce is engaged in developing its own potential to deliver person-centered practice. So a really good fit, we think. And the program itself, again, you'll be familiar with most of this already, because it's work that much of which we've already begun or undertaken. So in the first stage of this People Plus program, we had a series of engagement events where we went out to all the regions to discuss the core ideas behind what it was that we thought we wanted to do, and to share ideas about how we could do that and what would be the best ways to go about it, to help us kind of co-produce with you what this program should contain. We developed a bespoke diagnostic tool, the Unlocking Enterprise self-assessment questionnaire, to help us benchmark how well we were working in this way at the moment. And then we asked each area to start developing their own action plans, and we had some amazing examples of those, and some great stories that we've captured through the recent marketplace events of where you've got to with that. And it'd be really great to see those stories that we captured on DVDs when those are ready as well. The final element to this this program is focusing on how we embed this approach into everyday practice. Part of that is about looking at back office systems and doing that continual reflection, of which this series of webinars will be an integral part, to make sure that we continue to learn as we begin to implement new approaches about what it takes to do this well, and what we need to do centrally to make it as easy as possible, and how we can share our learning to help others across the organization do similar things. One thing that I just wanted to remind people of is the information that you've got already from the diagnostic, the use of the diagnostic early on when we kicked off this this program, is really important benchmarking information, and it may be something that we want to revisit later on, to ask people the same questions so that we can compare where we were and where we are now, and that will give us a really good set of information moving forward to help us show others that we've got some solid evidence to describe the progress that we're making. There are other tools that we will use as well to help us do that, but that process of continual learning and of logging the learning that we're making is going to be really important for helping consolidate our process as we move forward. And we hope that the webinars will be part of that. They will, as Kerry said, be recorded, so that people who can't join us on the day will be able to access the conversations that we have through these webinars, and use them as a resource if that's something that's helpful. So that's more or less as much as I wanted to say. Just a brief reminder of the core themes that we identified as things that we wanted to focus in on collectively. to maximise our learning as we move forward. So we wanted to think about how we could make this work for families. We also wanted to think about how we could maximise the way in which we were connecting people with communities and enabling people to contribute in different ways that made sense to them, and the ways in which we're learning that really work best for engaging people in co-producing this this approach and making the best use of the people resources that we have to make this really effective. So those are some of the kind of key core themes that we know that we want to draw learning about over the course of the next year as this program begins to embed and continues to roll out. And we will continue to revisit those themes throughout the course of these webinars. We will also have other support available. There are a number of staff that will be available to work with the different regions on rolling out People Plus, and there are some key core staff members who will be working to make sure that this is coordinated across the piece and to be able to work on those back office issues as well. We are flexible in the mode of support that we're offering, so we're trying this this method of webinars out to see how well that's going to kind of land with people, and we'll be interested to see people's views after today and after the subsequent webinars as to how useful that's been. But we'll also be offering face-to-face support for people taking their action plans forward, and there'll be we think it's going to be a Google group, email support as well, and telephone support available over the course of the next year. So that's as much as I wanted to say. We've got some key issues that people have raised for consideration and discussion today. I'm going to ask Sean now to just run through those briefly and pick them in no particular order, according to the ones that we think would be useful to kind of kick off with, and then we'll invite you to use those little hand symbols and get into some detail of discussion for how we can best kind of think about those issues. So over to you, Sean.
Okay, hi everybody. Key issues you have on the slide in front of you, and I'm not going to read them out. Many of the what actually is the issue in the bullet point is something I think we need to move to a question and answer session on. The one I did want to talk about briefly before we move on to question and answer is the whole impact of benefits if people are making money through their enterprise. The current situation, as you know, the current benefits approach changes dramatically on October the 1st, we think, although there's been a little bit of slippage in timing. So the current system, as you'll all know, is quite clunky, and there is a cliff edge, so that if people start to make significant money through their enterprise, then it will have an impact on their benefits. The amount of money people are allowed to make at the moment, it depends on whether you've got, if you've been able to negotiate therapeutic working or not. But there will be a point at which benefits ends. But under the universal credit system, the situation is intended to be a lot smoother. Whether it actually works like that, I don't know. And the thing I wanted to point out to people, if you weren't aware of it, is the self-employment startup period that the universal credit system allows. So for somebody setting up an enterprise, they recognise they need time to establish it, and so they allow a 12-month startup period where any income gained from that enterprise will not have an impact on benefits at all, and people will they won't assume a minimum level of income from self-employment, which is known as the minimum income floor. I can talk about that further. And so that is actually very, very helpful. And then, of course, there's a much smoother, they've merged out of work and in work benefits, so that theoretically at least, as people begin to earn income, their benefits will reduce in a real-time way, and that should allow people to move smoothly in and out of work and to retain the sort of benefit support. Anyway, I'd like to, having said that, I think it would be useful to know what problems you're experiencing, and so could we move on to question and answer, Kerry?
Thank you, Sean. Okay, we don't have any hands up at the moment, so if anybody would like to ask a question, please click on the hand icon so that I can then make you live. Okay, it appears at the moment that we don't have any questions.
People are completely numbed by it. Okay, well, what I'm going to do for you, because I need to do it anyway for myself, is I will write a paper for you which will summarise the impact of universal credit on people who are trying to make money through enterprise, or people moving into work. So I'll create a summary paper for you which will give as much detail as there is, and I'll send that to Catherine so she can circulate it to everybody, because it will be a problem you'll hit if people are making money through enterprise, or if people are beginning to gain skills and knowledge and move into work. So I'll create something for that. Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt, well, Sean. I do actually have a couple of people that have now put their hands up. So
oh, lovely.
Would you like me to move on to questions?
Yes, please.
I'll do that now. Thank you. Hello, Vivian. Live in the webinar. What's your question?
Oh, hi. One of the questions I have is that we're doing some work on our garden, and what we're looking to do for the future is to be able to sell, say, like fruit or veg. Could we not do it through MacIntyre rather than through the people that we support? So then it wouldn't affect their benefits.
Now that's, to some extent, that's a MacIntyre question. I know what you're saying. So that actually it's MacIntyre selling the fruit and veg, MacIntyre making the money. I suppose you have to think about whether that's the right what you're trying to achieve through your enterprise. So that if the purpose of the enterprise is enabling people to grow and sell fruit and veg, and so it's the experience of the growing and the experience of the selling that matters, and that what is less important is people actually making money from this, then that's fine. The alternative, I mean, there are ways in which you could create sort of a cooperative, for example, where the money is invested in the company, and people take other kinds of benefits from it. And there are ways of doing that the DWP are happy with, and I can talk about that in a bit more detail if you. I missed your name, but I can talk about that in a bit more detail with Catherine, so that you've got those.
Okay. Well, this is the long term.
Yeah. But you need to think about it. I mean, I just think. I think is the money important? Is it important to people to know that what they're doing allows them to generate an income or not?
Okay.
So it's thinking like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. Okay, I have one more question for you. Hello, Sarah. Welcome to the webinar. What's your question?
Hi, Sean. It's Sarah here.
Oh, hello, Sarah.
Hi, and I think that was Vivian, wasn't it, who just made that last comment?
Yeah.
Yeah. I really just put my hand up because you didn't have any questions, Sean.
Thank you. That's a kind of you.
Well, no, it was a point rather than a question, just to say that what a wonderful problem to have, really. And I just want to reassure everybody who was listening that we would ensure that we would respond to each person, and be that through financial advocacy or whatever, and that it would be lovely to think we would have these problems, which we would then work with each person to overcome. And we were talking yesterday actually in a senior team meeting about the on benefits and how we need to keep a close eye on all of that and people's personal circumstances and offer the appropriate support. So this is an extension of that really. But then the latter point you raise around cooperatives, etc., which is part of the value that you bring to all of this, Sian. And again, what a fantastic position to be in if we had an enterprise that had the possibilities of transforming into something more more of a sort of cooperative model. You'd help us do that on a case by case basis. So really, Vivian, we can and obviously we can be using case studies throughout the program that other people can learn from. So yeah, just those couple of comments really, rather than questions.
That's really helpful. I mean, I think my own view is people need to think through what outcomes people want to have from the enterprise, and if actually making money isn't important, that's fine.
Yes.
But quite often the link between work and money is an important link, and then we need to find a way of making that happen without as seamlessly and unchunkily as possible. And the universal credit system could be a complete disaster because it's it's a big change, but the theory of it should make this easier. And I will, as I say, produce some simple documents that everybody can have, which can spell out how it's going to work or how it should work. But also, I'll have a look at the current system. So
yeah, I mean, there are challenges to us as a quite a traditional organisation who, behind the scenes, sort of the one size fits all in terms of benefits to some extent. So. There are some challenges ahead for us to be more, I think, person-centred in our responses and supporting that we are maximising, benefits on people's behalf, etc. So it's a good point.
Yes, I think it's looking at finance systems particularly because if universal credit works, then if people are after their 12-month startup period, if people are earning an income, then that income will be taken into account, and that doesn't mean they lose all benefits, but it may mean that their benefits are reduced. Now, their total income will remain the same while that situation's, until the point where they go beyond the income that allows them to claim benefits. Your finance department will need to find systems which allow people to continue to make the same contribution. So it's just it will need thinking about. It won't be impossible, but it will need thinking about.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Sarah. I have another person with their hand up, so I will now move to that person. Hello, Wendy. You're live in the webinar. What's your question?
Hello, it's Andrew actually, not Wendy. I think it's just
sorry.
Okay. Just talking in our group here, and one of the ladies that we're supporting started a small little enterprise just running a bingo group where she's had a first session. Now there's a fee charge for people to come in. I just wanted to make sure that we covered here in regards to the fees charged by each individual to pay £3, and it's not classed as a gambling activity even though the prize is being awarded, and the money will be going back into the business in regards to buy prizes for the bingo session.
Oh, what a great enterprise!
Yeah, it's on the first session has gone so well. It's really pleased, and the money's been used. She's laid her own money out first. She's been involved in the printing of bingo cards, getting the down. And everybody, it's a picture bingo, and it's actually gone absolutely fantastic. And the senior support worker who's been supporting her has filled out her first project diary in regards to this that we got sent out from Qatar. and it's been going really well. We just wanted to make sure that would cover that it's not a gambling activity, the money is invested. So even like to keep people involved with things like buying project diary, like it'll be like some Easter eggs and Christmas things, and money will be reinvested all the time back into prizes for the whole.
I've not come across this before, so I'm going to do some research on it for you just to make sure. And let me just write myself a note because my short-term memory is not as great as it was. So, small bingo club. Does it need registering? Small bingo club. Is it a gambling?
I mean, they have tea and coffee and refreshments provided, which covers that cost.
I'm sure it isn't, because I think a lot of a lot of clubs will run bingo sessions, and that's done as informally, and people pay a bit and it covers the cost effectively of what you're doing without people making profit from it. But I will double check, because it's easy to trip over those rules. The other thing is whether this is something that needs to be treated as a self-employed initiative. So there's something around keeping good financial records, so that you've got good records of the money coming in, the money going out, and if any surplus is made, it will be tiny, I know, but just let's keep the records going. But just great. It sounds fantastic, and part of the reason I'm going to research it is just new knowledge for me. So that's great.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. I don't have any further questions for the moment.
Okay. Right. Our next one is really one that I know MacIntyre are giving quite a lot of support on, and it's one-page profiles. Now, I need to go straight into a question and answer session on that, because I know that one-page profiles is many of the groups we've been working with have built the use of one-page profiles of both staff and for people supported into their action plans, so that they have a much better idea of the assets and gifts of both, everybody involved in MacIntyre. So I know that that's something that is in nearly every action plan. What I don't know is what the question is about that. So could we move straight to question and answer?
Certainly. I have one person with their hand up. I'll go straight to them. Hi Sarah, you're live again. What's your question?
Hi again. Sorry, it's not really a question.
Hello.
I wanted to ask whether Yvonne is an attendee. I don't have an attendee list, but I wonder if Yvonne isn't in attendance, whether Catherine, you could just say what the plans are and the rationale around one-page profiles, and because we had quite a big debate about it at the last meeting, and Yvonne spoke very passionately about the benefits, and I just think it'd be useful for all the attendees to sort of hear that. So, if you're in attendance, could you just give us a bit of your time?
Is that Yvonne Nugent?
Oh, do you know, embarrassingly, I don't know your surname. I'm really sorry, Yvonne. I suspect it is, but Catherine will jump in if I'm wrong.
Okay, so if Yvonne or Catherine could put their hand up for me to let me know if the correct Yvonne is logged on to the webinar, and then I can unmute you. Okay, Catherine's put her hand up, so I'll just unmute Catherine for a moment. Hi Catherine, you're live into the webinar. Hello Catherine, can you hear me?
Is there something that she might need to do to make the audio work, Kerry? Is it?
Well, it looks as though the audio that Catherine has is through her computer, so as long as she has a speaker and a microphone switched on, she should be able to speak.
Okay.
If you can hear me, Catherine, could you take your hand back down from the screen? Okay, so Catherine can hear me, but she can't speak. What I would suggest, Catherine, is if oh, hello? Sorry, who was that then? Okay, what I would suggest, Catherine, is that it looks to me as though the microphone isn't working on your computer. So if you could log, what you'll need to do, ideally, to be able to speak is to log off the webinar and to log back on using a handheld telephone. If you're happy to do that, if you could put your hand back up again for me. Okay, I'm not getting anything from Catherine at the moment.
Can you still hear me, Kerry?
Right.
I can, yes.
Okay, I wonder then, maybe if I can just do a bit of a synopsis, literally 30 seconds until Catherine, just now that I've raised the issue. I don't know what the issues particularly were, but in general, there has been some discussion internally about the sort of style and design and template for one-page profiles, and I think well, my view is we didn't really want to be too prescriptive. We just think it's great that those conversations and that reflection is happening. So although there are templates that Yvonne and Catherine and Susan can share with people, I think it was just great that there was so much enthusiasm to spend time with people we support and staff teams exploring the issues around what people bring, etc., and that we would like that those discussions to be happening and not get too hung up on templates. And Yvonne feels incredibly passionate about the potential of those conversations and the outcome of those conversations. I know she was talking about giving some support, running some local sessions, and when Catherine, maybe after the webinar, if we can't hear from Catherine, I think there is a whole sort of plan around that. So whilst we're trying to not to be prescriptive, we felt there was enough interest to have some sessions that Yvonne would be running. So yes, I think that's probably what Catherine. I have just had a text from Catherine actually.
I've just had a question as well from Vivian to say that she has a lady with her called Yvonne Linton, and could that be the lady that was...
Oh, Yvonne, I think I'm really embarrassed. I don't... okay, Yvonne, put your hand up if you were in the meeting when we were talking about this, the advisory group.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Vivian's hand down, and then if the correct Yvonne is with Vivian, if you could put your hand back up again for me, Vivian, please. Okay, lovely. I'm going to unmute Vivian's line.
Oh, fantastic.
Hello, you're live into the webinar.
Hello there, it's Yvonne. Hi.
And hi, you're the person who's passionate about one-page profiles and their potential. It would be great if you talked about that.
Okay. I mean, what we'd like to do is to support the various services to develop one-page profiles for the staff teams. And, you know, it'll just be a morning's presentation workshop, and we'll go through the three headings that make up the one-page profile. And from that, you gain and remember and re-embed the key messages of a person-centered approach, and you apply them to yourself. And we do believe in People Plus that really you've got to apply these approaches to yourself before you're ready to apply them to other people. So that's what I'm going to do over the next sort of couple of months, see everybody in my area, and we'll all develop our professional one-page profiles together, and then take things from there. But you know, maybe we can have a nice gallery or something somewhere, and we could put things up. But yeah, I mean that's the idea. I think particularly because you know one-page profiles not only you know take you back to the beginning of what and why person-centered approaches are. but they give you something really practical and useful at the end that you can put into action. So, you know, that's going to be part of the one-page profile, is to think, okay, now who needs to see this? You know, just as we do if we're working with families. Okay, you know, this is our lovely piece of paper, but, you know, who needs to see it, and what difference is it going to make? And, you know, thinking about those questions, and then so when it comes to working with, you know, the people that we support, we're used to thinking in that way about, well, you know, we've got a one-page profile, so what? You know, what's next? What are we going to do with it? And why? But also make it part of updating the profiles can be part of supervision, using reflective practice. So, you know, it becomes embedded in, you know, how we do things rather than, you know, something sort of special or extra or separate. It's just the normal way that we think and act.
That just sounds fascinating, and it will be great to see what happens through this. So you're refreshing, because everybody has a one-page profile, do they already? And what you're doing is refreshing and re-concentrating on those in a person-centered way, and then thinking about how you can people can work differently to kind of follow the passions and use the skills they've got. Is that about right?
Absolutely, definitely, yeah.
I mean, that's great.
As Sarah was saying, we're not going to be sort of too rigid about it's got to be a very work-focused one, or you know, make it sort of personal, or you know, we need to embed the people plus themes within our profiles. You know, it's going to be up to the individual to develop the profile that makes sense for them, and then we'll take things from there and see, you know, perhaps through that then people think, I mean, when I've worked with families, we have done them really specifically for specific contexts, like the one-page profile for the dentist for a young person who maybe struggles with going to the dentist wouldn't necessarily include some of the information that perhaps the respite carers would need, or you know, or that the school would need. So it's, you know, but I think initially, you know, I like to go with the enthusiasm and encourage people to sort of to go nuts in whatever direction they feel makes sense to them. You know, so it's going to be broad and flexible initially, and we'll see what comes.
That's really exciting. That is so exciting. And with the one-page profiles you use with the people you're supporting, those tend to have a particular focus, do they? That's quite interesting.
They may do, but that's up to families. Yeah, they may do. Everybody seems to have. Everybody's got a general sort of, you know, this is me sort of profile. Some families have decided they needed something a little bit more specific for, say, the learning support assistant, or for a PA, something more specific. But one particular family, I can sort of think of, did sort of specific one-page profiles for specific contexts. Because you know, her particular young man, she felt, you know, that's what he needed. That's, you know, that.
Which is your service? What are you doing?
Family footage.
Of course you are. Of course you are.
One day people plus.
Because that's really interesting. So families create the one-page profiles.
Yes, with their young person together.
What might be interesting, you know, at some point, and I think you need to concentrate on what you're doing, which is fantastic with the one-page profiles and stuff. But it might be interesting to do to look at the one-page profiles for the people you're supporting, because what you'll get, what you may get, is and to look at a more general one that doesn't have a particular purpose, because I suspect what you get with the focus ones the families are producing is a partial picture. Or a skewed picture. So it might be when you're at the point where you feel that you've really got a grip on the one-page profiles with your staff, and those are able to be used, and you've got all the systems in place that allow that to happen, might then be interesting and useful to do a similar approach for the people you're supporting. What do you think? Does that sound relevant? Yeah.
Absolutely. And I know that some families, I mean, that sort of that most of that part of the project, you know, that finished at the end of the sort of DFE project, but some families at the end were talking about doing specific one-page profiles for going to college, for employers, and again, that definitely wasn't a, you know, sort of general everything you need to know about me picture. They were tailoring it to think about who was seeing it. So they may not include things like likes to bounce on the trampoline in the dark. But they might include, you know, sort of other useful supports. It was that sort of thing, you know, what information does the college need to know, and what information do they not need to know so much? Or
it may seem irrelevant, as you say, bouncing on the trampoline in the dark, or passionate about butterflies or something, which might not seem relevant.
Which is all about that young person.
Yeah.
But sometimes as well with the young people, particularly with the teenagers, they are so particular about what goes in those profiles and what doesn't. You know, really particular. And then, you know, it can, but ultimately it belongs to them, and they need to feel comfortable about the information they're sharing. But sometimes as well, I think with the sort of the younger adults, you know, that it's very sensitive work to get any content whatsoever. You know.
Yes, and people,
you know, because it's sometimes for younger adults, it's all about don't get to know me. You know, I don't want you to.
So I want some privacy. Thank you very much.
Exactly.
Yes,
absolutely. I mean, my daughter's profile says at the bottom, it says, "This is the property of Shona Glenn. Do not show it to anybody without my permission." So it doesn't go very far. Absolutely, because she's 14 and that's how it has to be. But there needs to be quite a lengthy debate every time I need to show it to somebody. So it has, you know, it has its pros and cons. But that's the reality of it. You know, these are very. They give a lot of the person away. And I think, you know, as they move out of childhood and they become, you know, and all the people we support, you know, it's about, you know, their choices as to how they are reflected in the profile, in a sense. You know, it's so different. But these are all, and those sort of issues came up as well in terms of the professional profiles. You know, what people didn't want to share, and those whole ideas about where is the line, who's drawing it, and how much of ourselves are we giving, of our personal selves are we giving in our professional capacity, and how much are we keeping back, and why. And you know, and I just think it's interesting to just explore that and have
It is, and I think part of it is people understanding what they're there, why they're being done, but also, I mean, we had lots of quite interesting debates in the engagement sessions, and then later in the actual planning sessions, and people were some people were very clear that they had a work life and a home life, and they didn't want those lives to merge. And I think we have to respect that. You know, people are who they are. Has anybody else? This is a really interesting discussion. I'm just wondering if anybody else would like to contribute to it.
I do have another person with their hand up. Would you like me to bring them live into the webinar?
I'd love to.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Kath, you're live. What's your question?
Hello?
Hello, is that Kath?
No, that was Sean. Sorry, I was just helloing.
Oh, right. Okay, I think we may have another where we can't hear you, but you can hear us. I'm going to take your hand down, Kath. If you can hear me, please could you put your hand back up? Okay. Unfortunately, it looks as though Kath doesn't have access to the microphone on her computer as well.
Okay. Well,
would it be possible for Kath to type her question at this point?
Yes, if Kath would like to type her question into the questions box, press send, and then I can read that out.
You can read it out. Fantastic.
Okay. Thank you very, very much for that conversation. I think that's been really interesting, and it's hit some, I think, some of the issues around privacy, which are really important. And I know that, if I'm speaking for you, Sarah, out there, that MacIntyre's view is people have a right to privacy. So this is not something that to be forced. People share what they want to share, but what we want to get at is people realizing that we're just keen to understand their passions and what they would like to be able to do with them. So without kind of interfering in people's privacy. Have you got Kath's message?
I have, yes. Kath has a message to say she is very sorry that we can't hear her. She has some resources to share about one-page profiles and will email them through with her comments.
Oh, fantastic. That's really generous and helpful. That's really great. Thank you. Okay. Anything anybody else would like to contribute before I move on to the next bullet point issue? Anything else, Kerry?
I don't have any other people with their hands up at the moment.
Okay. Well, thank you very, very much for contributions, everybody, on one-page profiles. It would be a discussion. It would be good to carry on as we go on. The next issue is relationships, possible risks, need for CRB checks. I think the next three issues actually link because they're all about risk. And I suspect this is risk about people moving out from MacIntyre into the community. I may be wrong on that, though, so you must correct me. But taking the first bullet point, again, I could do with knowing a little bit more about this. So are the relationships within MacIntyre, outside MacIntyre? Are you worrying about, as people develop friendships outside MacIntyre, the safety of those friendships? Is that what the question's about? So can I move into question and answer, Kerry, and invite people to contribute to this one? I think it's really interesting, really challenging, and it takes a deep breath, some of this, for you.
Thank you. We don't have any people with their hands up at the moment, so if anybody would like to ask a question, if you could please raise your hand.
I'd quite like Sarah again, if she were prepared to contribute, because I think part of the answer to this is MacIntyre's own. You can't CRB. I mean, you can't CRB check the whole world. As people begin to move, to live full lives, real lives, have lots of relationships outside MacIntyre, there is an inevitable risk around that.
Okay.
And so it would be interesting to get MacIntyre's view.
Okay. Sarah has raised a hand, so I'll make Sarah live. Hi,
Hi,
Sarah.
Sarah.
You're live in the webinar.
Yeah, hi, Sean. It's such a shame that Catherine mic isn't working, because I think there are some quite specific questions that can raise. So if there are people out there listening in, it may be a technical problem. We've got groups, to put it into context, Sean and Sam, we've got groups of people gathered in offices around the country, and we've got a facilitator in each setting. So I think people could be brave if they've got particular questions. But I agree with you, Sean, in the broader point that this is challenging and it can be a bit scary. And we are quite good at assessing situations, and there will be a feeling of nervousness, I'm sure, in local areas about local people making some of those decisions. But I would urge people to to make those decisions, and there will be advice and support from us to do that. But again, it just feels good that we're having those conversations.
There's something about, because I mean, I absolutely understand that people will feel responsibility and a duty of care, and we need to understand and acknowledge that, I think. And there's something about, risk assessment and risk assessment of particular situations, which is where you fulfil your duty of care. But there may be, I think I'm coming round to a view, Sarah, that it may be interesting. We need to look at review systems and processes as we go on anyway, whether this is an area where it would be useful to have some time with a group of people looking at the systems and processes around risk within MacIntyre, because you're going to hit this more and more and more, and you will have the people you're supporting making what feel like very risky decisions about people they want to connect with, groups they want to join that are outside your control. So how do we as an organisation deal with that in a way that allows people to lead really full lives where they're able to make risky decisions, but within a context of safeguarding, because we do have a safeguarding duty as well. So does that sound?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're quite good at assessing risk. I think there will not be a single person listening who hasn't in the last 2 years had to risk assess a situation. Now we are pushing boundaries a bit at times, and that's good for other people who feel more confident to do that. So there is definitely a peer learning thing here, no doubt about it. And this has been a thread, hasn't it, throughout all of the engagement events, all of the other events, and probably worthy of some case studies and some debate sort of as we go on. But I just would urge people.
So basically, just sorry, Sarah, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think you feel that there's no need to look at the process. It just may be that some case studies will give people confidence about the positive impact of connections outside the community and balancing the risk of those connections with what happens to people when they're able to really follow their passions and interests. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely.
I wonder if sorry, Sean. I wonder if Sarah, if it might be worth inviting people to share case studies with us. If people have examples of from their recent interactions where they've managed to take a really positive but balanced kind of person-centered approach to risk, which dovetails with how MacIntyre would want to approach things, but might kind of illustrate how that could work in a practical setting, that would be a really good resource, I think, a way of kind of collecting those stories.
The CRB check bit of this, Sarah, do you have MacIntyre will have an approach about where CRB checks are needed, which everybody I'm sure will be aware of. Is it possible to explain that now, or?
Yeah, well, the CRB process is just about to change, but I guess that's not that relevant. I mean, we do expect to do enhanced CRB checks, obviously, for all employees, and then we take a view on other people. And again, that's all part of the risk assessment. So, for example, what we would call a traditional volunteer, someone who is working regularly in a volunteer capacity, we would ask for a CRB. but in other situations where there's a sort of friendship stroke volunteer, then we may not. But that would have been all part of the risk assessment. I think we feel far more comfortable when we feel there's an element of sharing a risk. So if the person themselves, the family, other people who are involved in that person's circle of support, that I think we feel quite comfortable with that. So sometimes we have to work a bit harder in getting other people on board, because I think we sort of tend, by rule of thumb, to be a bit more comfortable if we feel there's a shared risk. So
in a situation, yeah, sorry, go on.
No, sorry, go on, John.
No, I was just trying to clarify for myself, really, Sarah. In a situation where, for example, somebody had been, I don't know, out doing a community activity, met somebody, wanted to, maybe stay overnight in their house, real friendship, wanted to sleep over. What you do on that would be involve all the people in the life of that person in thinking about the risk of that. Would you? Is that how it would work?
Yes.
And if it was clearly the person's choice and the family, what happened if the family were unhappy? Would you?
Well, that would be quite a thorny situation, and one that we would have to debate and try and resolve.
Okay. But it's kind of case by case, person by person.
It is. And if he was happy with that situation, it was a relationship that was important, then we, we felt that we'd explored those issues. But that would be that particular situation that you described there, Charm, would leave some of us feeling quite cold and a bit underconfident, and would take some convincing. So, but it is all about having those discussions.
Yes, I know, and there is risk. A community isn't always benign, and not everybody in a community is benign, and there is something about that. But okay,
we've got lots of very. Sorry, I was just going to say we've got lots of very experienced people who can make good judgments. So yeah.
I suppose it's when people engage in behaviour which is risky that it starts to, it just gets difficult, doesn't it? I had a young man who used to cross-dress badly, and he would go, and he wanted to go out. He wasn't prepared. This wasn't about being at home. It was about being out cross-dressing. That's what was important to him. He got beaten up regularly. And he had a health condition which meant that was life-threatening when that happened, but he kept doing it. And we'd done all the things about helping him to cross-dress properly, or less obviously, and it was, in the end, it was one of those discussions where you needed to know he understood the risk, and then he did it, and. But really difficult. I'm sorry, I was hogging this. I just wonder, is there anybody else with a hand up? Kerry.
Another person with their hand up, and a question from Cass, who is one of the ladies that doesn't have access to a microphone. So Cass has put that her concern and query is about supporting people to go home with staff or other family members. And then she said, would the family need to be having CRB checks?
Okay. I think, Sarah may correct me, but I think you are limited in who you can CRB check, for a start. My knowledge on this comes from Shared Lives, where the Shared Lives carers, the people providing the direct care, are CRB checked, but we are not allowed to CRB check the rest of the family. So I'm assuming that you would not be able to CRB check the rest of the family. I think what you'd have to do in that situation, now you may be able to, the DBS, is it DSB, DBS? The the new service that's replacing CRB, I don't think has different rules on that. In fact, I know it hasn't. So you can't. What you probably need to do is what Sarah's talking about, which is a really careful risk assessment, so that the staff member knows that they have a responsibility for the safety of the person within the household, and that if there is anybody who is unsafe in that household, so people with, I don't know, criminal convictions for violent offences or whatever, that it can't happen. So does that, Sarah, what do you feel on this? Sarah's off again, is she?
I've just placed Sarah back on again.
Oh, hello. What do you feel?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, no, I agree with that, Sian. I think it's, you know, we do face these issues on a daily basis. So yeah.
And yes, I think it is giving some responsibility to the person who's going to take somebody home to ensure that the environment they're taking them into is safe. And what MacIntyre's duty of care, I think, is dealt with at the point where you have done that very careful, had that very careful discussion and recorded it, so that you know it's okay.
Absolutely.
People do have dodgy relatives, so you know there is something about just making sure that you know that what people's responsibilities are. There's somebody with their hand up, isn't there, Carrie?
There is, yes, I'll make that person live, thank you. Hello Vivian, you're live in the webinar.
Oh hi, it's just Yvonne again. Just following on from the thinking about the work with the one-page profiles and sort of the getting to know people, and in sort of, you know, in preparation, there's thinking tools that you can use with people, you know, like decision-making tools, but also exploring what consent looks like or means for individuals, and just do it before, so that it's known, you know, and I just think with all of these things, it's about preparation, and it's about, you know, before rather than once it's happening.
I agree, and I also think there's something about, you know, MacIntyre has a culture which supports people taking, you know, taking reasonable risk, and which supports relationship. So I think all this happens within that context, which is fantastic. That's not true in other organisations, of course. You know, risk becomes, safeguarding becomes the big focus, and that will be very restrictive for people if it's applied wrongly. So, but that's really helpful. Thank you, Yvonne.
Ron, I'm just wondering if the tools that you're suggesting that you've been using that you found really helpful, if that's something that is commonly used by other people, or if it's something that, or if they're tools that are worth kind of sharing and letting.
I can certainly sort of have a look through and think what sort of, you know, what makes the most sense. But I mean, in each service, as you were developing the profile, and it becomes a living description attached to it would be all these other, you know, ways of, you know, sort of exploring what consent means to that particular person. So if the people are really clear, I mean, I think it's that, you know, as long as, I mean, I remember pre-safeguarding. I mean, as long as MacIntyre aren't sort of facilitating, you know, people to you know,
do illegal things, drug running and
you know, as long as,
I do.
Yeah, it's I mean, for me, in terms of risk, and there's some fantastic. I mean, at the end, the person-centered risk stuff. I think that's Kath Barton's contribution. There's some amazing stuff that Kath has sent through, and that's good. That's good preparation and good tools to work with. But you know, it's about what we do well, really, which is really knowing the people that we support as people, you know, rather than problems.
And that's really great. I think, but I think as Simon says, it sounds as if some of the tools are kind of central tools that are just made available to you, and then each service develops tools as well. Is that right? If you could unmute, Sarah.
One moment, I'll do that now.
Sorry, Sean. Sorry. Hi. Yeah, I'm here. Sorry. Say that again.
I was just interested because Simon made a really helpful point, because there are some really great tools that people are using now. And I don't know the answer to it. You will know this. It sounds like because you're a very enabling organisation, people are enabled to develop their own tools in some areas. Is that right, Sarah? Have I got that wrong, or are people actually using it?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of person-centred tools, in terms of safeguarding, we've got the safeguarding group, etc., etc. So that should be out there, and yeah.
So I think it was just Simon's point about if you've got something fantastic that's really helpful and is really taking this forward, it would be great to find a way of sharing that. But you have that ability, don't you?
Yes, yeah. And Catherine's listening in. So in terms of the person-centred tools, and also we have the safeguarding group and all the tools associated to that. So yeah, absolutely, we can make sure that's all available.
Fantastic. Any other hands? Oh, sorry, Simon.
Just if I can feed in briefly at this point, I've had an email from Catherine Farrell, who's struggling with the microphone technology at Pace. So I'm just going to read out the point that Catherine's asked us to share before we lose it, which is really just to emphasise that there will be a range of support available for people in the project. So there will be a named support person who's going to be in regular contact. There's going to be a timetable of support over the next 12 months, which will be focusing on one-page profiles first. So that's going to be one of the really early priorities. There's a lot of work already. I know Catherine has told me already in train around that. There's going to be other resources, as Kath has stated, including training and mentoring, which we can flex according to what people need. And there's a menu of support that people can choose from to kind of work out what's going to be the best fit. We're also going to be gathering people's stories and questions for future webinars. So before we end today, one of the things that we wanted to do was to make sure that people start to have a think about, between now and the next webinar, what are the key themes that are going to be the priority ones that we should be focusing on. And the more kind of advanced notice we can get to that, the more preparation Sean and I can do to try and feed in useful perspectives and tools and other things that might be of interest.
Marvellous. Frustrating for poor Catherine. Not being able to speak when you want. But thank you. Now, do we have any other hands, Kerry?
I have a question or a comment again from Kath, but that's for the next topic of person-centred risk, so I don't know whether you want me to read that out now or wait until you move on.
Well, I can move, if nobody else has a question about bullet point 3, issue 3, the next bullet point isn't the person-centred risk bullet point. And it's about MacIntyre engaging with other organisations and the processes that might need to be in place to make sure that you are fulfilling your duty of care on the people that you're supporting and the people are getting engaged with. So has anybody wanting to talk to that point? Is any hand up? Anybody where this is interesting? Okay.
Again, it does feel, as you say, Sean, that these kind of 3 last issues are kind of quite closely interrelated, aren't they? So I guess what we can do is just open up for anyone who wants to kind of pose a question in relation to any of those kind of 3, or indeed if there's anything else that we haven't covered that's a burning issue for people, then I think now would be a good time to raise that. So let's
I
see what
suppose,
we've got.
Simon, I just wanted to talk about, I think there is a particular issue about organisation to organisation, where, you know, you may be getting involved with, you may be linking with a local community group, or you may be linking with a local age concern or a local, and there is something about the decision about the boundaries and how you engage, which it would be interesting to get people's views on. I don't want to keep badgering Sarah, but I'm just interested in Sarah's views on that particular thing.
You're now live, Sarah.
Am I live? Okay.
Sorry, Sarah. I think it is a specific point. It isn't quite the person-centred risk point that what point 3 was. And it's absolutely fine. I can see, you know, a link with the local Duke of Edinburgh Award people and getting students to come in and volunteer. There's some stuff around how you do that and whether every student has to be CRB checked, for example, and what you engage them in. I mean, I think some of this is around what the nature of that link, I think.
Yeah, I think just to reiterate Catherine's written input just now, I mean, there is going to be lots of support for all these pragmatic things to be discussed internally, and that's great. In terms of the wider organisation to organisation, again, we have lots of examples. In fact, recently, I don't know if Andrea, you're in attendance, aren't you? We're doing some work with Keyring in Warrington.
Oh, interesting.
And,
yes.
Yeah, which is actually at the heart of a lot of the issues we've discussed today. It's all around informal support. It's really, you know, it's about a different way of working. So we do have so we would be pragmatic in MacIntyre's responsibility is this, Keyring's that, and we sort of just then get on with it. But the important thing is that we have that joint vision, and we have some sort of level of agreement, and that can be formal, it can be informal, but so again, there will be support. So if there is an organisation that we are linking with, and there'll be that internal support to make sure that's we're clear about whose responsibility is what, and again thrash out any thorny issue. We tend to be quite pragmatic people, really, and we just sort of get on and do. But you know, the Keyring one actually is really interesting because it is around people who we are relinquishing some of our paid support for informal support, but we still have an overall accountability and responsibility. So and Andrea can keep everybody abreast of how that's going. But there is I think there's something about learning from these different situations which informs all sorts of others, isn't there? So and how you collate that, and again stories maybe. I think the context is that MacIntyre thinks links with other organisations is a good thing. So the pragmatism comes, I think because you work like that, you don't realise it's unusual always. So, which is just fantastic. Anyway, so just broadening things out, there was a comment from Kath that related to the last issue, which is person-centred risk. Is Kerry, are you able to read that out?
Yes, certainly. Kath has advised that she is accredited to deliver person-centred risk training and is happy to provide training where we can discuss live risk issues or provide individual support, and she will be sharing resources on MacIntyre's notice board shortly.
Marvellous. Wonderful. That's really exciting. So, any other people like to raise their hand or type a message? I think we're kind of moving into the last phase. We've got another. I have
one more person with their hand up, so I'll make them live for you. Hello, Vivian or Yvonne, you're live in the webinar.
Hi, it's actually Kiri. I'm here as well. I'm the admin for Hi. For Southview and Anvil. So there was two things. I have a question about volunteers, and then Viv was going to talk about one of our volunteers who's been at Southview, who's really good. So my question is that I've found that it takes quite a long time to get volunteers through the door. We've got one at Southview and two at Anvil, but because of the CRB process, by the time it gets round to getting them in, they've often found somewhere else or lost interest. And I wondered if, until they become regular, if there's any chance. But I mean, what are the regulations on getting someone in, kind of in the supervised role until their checks come through? I don't know if there's any possibility of doing that.
Okay, and how long is it taking, Kiri? Is it?
Well, it's 6 to 8 weeks usually.
Oh gosh, yes, it's ages, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it is. I think that's a MacIntyre decision. I'm going to ask Kerry to unmute Sarah yet again. Sorry, Sarah, because I think my own view is it ought to be possible to engage your volunteers in an activity that doesn't give them unsupervised access, to keep them.
Yeah,
and
we've had some really. Sorry, we've had some really good potential volunteers, but we've kind of lost.
That you've lost.
Yeah.
What other checking do you do, by the way?
Sorry?
Sorry. Just wondering what other checking do you do to take up references, that kind of thing as well? Is there a process?
Yes, we have to.
Yes, yeah.
The reference is not as rigorous as for an employee. It's quite an informal two personal references. But it's the DBS, the CRB, which takes the longest, really.
DBS.
Okay. Sorry, Sean,
Sarah.
Yeah, sorry, I was texting at the same time. I am unmuted. So is this the issue around length of time for volunteers? Is that, sorry, I was sort of...
The issue, Sarah, was that it's taking a long time to get people through the DBS checks, CRB checks. And is it possible to engage them before the checks come through in a supervised way?
I think again that is something we'd make a decision about case by case, and we'd risk assess it on a case by case basis.
Okay, so it's possible. Yes. It just needs to be carefully thought about, and you need to go.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay, great, thank you. Viv just wanted to share an experience that we've got at Southview, so I'll hand you over to her.
Lovely.
Oh, hi. Hi. We actually have a young gentleman, he's 15 and a half, and he's doing his Duke of Edinburgh Award. And he comes in and plays guitar and sings to one of the people that we support. And it's going really well.
Yeah, that sounds gorgeous. That's a real nice example.
Yeah, and I know that once he's finished the award, he wants to continue and probably come maybe once a month and continue to have a relationship with this one of our people that we support. And obviously sometimes they're together, but we will have staff around, just around the corner, just keep checking that they're okay.
From my point of view, that sounds fantastic.
Because he's 15 and a half.
Yeah,
he didn't have a CRB, so we just make sure staff are around.
Well, from my point of view, that sounds fantastic.
That's great. Yeah.
No problem. Lovely. Marvellous. Anybody else like to make a point?
Anybody else with their hands up?
Okay. Any no-typed messages?
No.
Well, in which case, for me, this has been a really good. This is my first webinar experience. It's been great, and it's been a really interesting opportunity to explore some of these questions. Very glad you were there, Sarah, because we did need a MacIntyre view.
Sean, I do have one person that's put their hand up.
Okay.
Hello, you're through for the live webinar. What's your question?
Oh, hello.
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 Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Oh,
We can hear you.
it's Kath Barton. We've been tinkering with our laptop so we could get some sound.
Oh, well done.
No. We were just trying to reiterate what Yvonne was saying about one-page profile. Just that we want to make it a minimum requirement that we have one-page profiles in place for staff, and it's not about sharing all your personal details, but that it's not just something we do for the people that we support, but this is the way we work because we recognise people's gifts and talents, and we want to use the profiles as a way of team building and through supervision and as a way of matching staff and to recognise the gifts and talents. So we are going to be doing some one-page profile workshops and using the MacIntyre notice board to share resources and sharing that by email.
That's really exciting.
It's fantastic to hear, Kath.
Yeah, we've got some great examples of where one-page profiles are having, big impacts in staff teams. So, and we can be writing those and sharing some stories. And also thinking about person-centred risk. I'm accredited to deliver the person-centred risk training. And what we do, we use the person-centred thinking tools to go through the risk process, being really specific. Think about the person, the individual, what success would look like, being really specific around the risk issue, and what good support would look like for that person. But on the training, we can look at a live risk issue for somebody who's being supported, or I'm happy to do that on an individual basis as well. So if anybody wants that support.
That's great.
And we're going to be having, on the notice board, when we've got that up and running, we'll have a section around person-centred risk, so people can check out some resources.
There is so much gift and talent in this organisation. It's just fantastic. That's really good. Nice to hear your voice as well, Kath.
And you.
Any other hands, messages, anything?
No, nothing at the moment.
Okie dokes. Well, I'm going to hand back to Simon as presenter. I've just realised I've got no right to do anything other than this bit. So, Simon, as presented, is this a time where we would just kind of round up and say thank you to everybody and look forward to the next webinar?
Absolutely. I'm afraid because my screen is showing just the slides, I can't pull up the date for the next webinar, but we do have a date for the next webinar, which I believe is sometime in July. I don't know if you can see that.
It's the 12th, Simon.
It's the 12th. Okay, so the next webinar will be on the 12th of July. Do we have a time, Kerry? Is that?
Not that I'm aware of, no. I believe it's morning, but I haven't been given a time as yet.
Then I think it might
10 till 12, sorry.
10 till 12,
yeah.
Okay.
No,
Fantastic. So it would be great if we could get some feedback from people, if you've got any thoughts about how this webinar works, what works well for you, anything that we could improve upon. So please do email your thoughts directly to either Sharon or myself or to Catherine, and we'll use that learning for the next one. Also, particular ideas that you've got for themes that we should be focusing on in the next webinar would be really good to hear. We'll end on that note, just to thank everyone for their time and for contributing. We hope you found it useful. Apologies to those people who struggle to participate. Hopefully we can make that a little bit smoother for next time. But a big thank you also to Kerry for being our administrator for today and for setting up
You're very welcome.
Webinar session and making it go as smoothly as it did. So thank you very much for that, Kerry. And look forward very much to the next one.
Well.